Greetings, it's Patty from Natural Law Health. I have a few minutes before I have a client, but I wanted to make a quick video just to kind of keep them coming. This video, I'm just going to focus on the jab, once again, the vaccine. And I believe I mentioned in a previous video that these pharmaceutical companies, when they're doing tests, when they're testing to prove efficacy, when they're testing to prove that this vaccine is going to be protective, and their version of protection is basically, is it evoking an antibody response? Now, with the current COVID vaccine, I don't know if that's what they're looking for, because I'm not quite sure this is even a vaccine they're injecting into people. And it really does amaze me how many people want this thing because I think it's a big experiment. Really, there's no sound way to determine that injecting a messenger RNA type of vaccine, which in the past it's all been protein in its ability to evoke antibody production. So these little antigenic proteins, which we know from previous pathogen exposure, the antigens of those pathogens, and by the way, an antigen is just a little protein marker on the surface of a bacteria or a virus. That little antigen, when it is processed, it then, through humoral immunity, through antibody-mediated immunity, is going to result in the production of many antibodies. And then these antibodies stay in our bodily fluids long term. You can measure them. So if a physician does titers or if a veterinarian does titers, they're looking for the presence of antibodies. Now, with that said, I'm not saying that having a lot of antibodies in your blood is good because you also get a lot of antibodies in your blood plasma with autoimmune disorders. And there is a link between those that have been vaccinated and their predisposition or their increased risk of developing an autoimmune disorder. But with that said, traditional vaccines have been based on a protein, right? And the protein, again, processed, it evokes an immune response, and that's what's protecting everybody. With the messenger RNA, they're injecting, again, genetic information. So be it. What is that genetic information going to do? Is it going to be incorporated into our DNA, become part of who we are? And they say it's a messenger RNA. I saw somebody on Facebook say, well, messenger RNA doesn't get incorporated into genetic codes. True. I mean, if you go by the traditional mechanism, the central dogma, DNA is transcribed to messenger RNA, which is translated into protein. I mean, in that forward progression. But who knows what else they're including? I mean, if they're including reverse transcriptase, which is how viruses replicate, then you can go messenger RNA back to DNA, and perhaps that DNA can then become embedded. I know that you can also insert RNA molecules. And I don't know if it's necessarily messenger RNA that can get inserted, but when I was in graduate school, I was looking at the process of inserting RNA into genetic codes. And it was something that at that time, and this was the early 2000s, that was being done in research labs. It's called RNAi, RNA inserts. So there's a lot of speculation about what's really going on, okay? And I think this is, as much as I can go more and more and more into the scientific perspective of all of this, I think there's a more foundational, important message here. And that is humanity needs to develop self-reflection, will, and true knowing. We have become and we are a programmable species. Humans are programmable. And the program is working quite well. The powers that should not be are doing a wonderful job programming us all. And where does that programming source come from? The television. I mean, who listens to the radio anymore? But various media, the internet, TV are the two big ones. And they're being very consistent with their message, and they're using tricks. For instance, they're using, the whole, like, well, everybody else is doing it, so you do it too, and they're putting forth this message like everybody wants the vaccine. If you look at what gets passed as being approved on various, again, social media like YouTube and Facebook, it's the people that are just willing to receive this injection. I will also add that messenger RNA vaccines have proven to be, in the past, quite dangerous. The animal trials have been just terrible, very deadly. Not too many people have survived. I don't understand why so many people want this vaccine. I mean, they have done a wonderful job, the powers that should not be, in propping up this vaccine, making everybody want it by taking away your freedom. Well, it's all a perceived taking away of your freedom, because you have the power to do anything you want. You are a sovereign being. You don't need to have some government official to give you certain permissions. We can do anything, right? We have arms, legs to walk, mind to think, but it's what we're doing with this physical form that's really most important. So, with the vaccines, in my humble opinion, in what I've looked at in my 20 plus years of investigating this and talking about it and reading about it and working with clients that have been vaccine damaged, I don't think any vaccine is safe. And nor do I think it's necessary. I think all vaccines are I think it's a big scam, to be honest with you. There's no protection that is needed that you can't obtain through natural means. Natural active immunity is the best immunity out there. That's where you're exposed to nature, and in your synchronous and way, in our beautiful way of interacting with nature, we become empowered. And plus, children that do go through the normal childhood diseases do progress better physiologically. Oftentimes, again, children, when they go through something like the chickenpox or measles, they have a advancement in their progression of being human. They have they go through something that helps them later in life. And it's been shown that children that have not been vaccinated but yet have had the childhood diseases, they have better protection against more chronic degenerative diseases in the future. I talked about the protection or the protective mechanisms of fever and how beneficial fevers are. So anyway, I wanted to throw that out there. It's kind of a haphazard video, but a little nugget of something before I talk with my client. I have very little time these days to put videos out, so when I have a little bit of time, I try to do this. So have a wonderful day, and I will see, hopefully you all, in my classes starting in just a few weeks, electrical chemistry and cell biology. Bye.